He wants us to go for IVF. Give it to me straight. Like, tell me what you're thinking. You can be like, I think you're incredibly stupid.
You really want it straight, do you, Jen? Okay, I'll give it to you straight. I think you're being incredibly stupid. You, Rishi and IVF is a bad combination. And heck, if you don't even want kids, why are you really entertaining this conversation?
Are you trying to prove to his mom that, hey, I may be older, but I can still have kids?
I'm not, but I think that's what he's thinking.
But it's your body.
And just like that, suddenly it all makes sense. Now, before we dive into just how messed up this conversation is, and more to the point, just how broken Jen and Rishi's relationship is today, let's just start at the beginning. So, the last time we saw Jen and Rishi, Rishi finally told his parents that, with or without their approval, he planned on marrying Jen. But, as Jen said at the time, actions speak louder than words, and unfortunately for her, she was right. Because when we catch up with Jen on 90 Day Diaries, we learn that she's moved to New York alone.
My dad said everyone should live in Los Angeles and New York at least once in their life. And I've done LA. So here I am in New York.
So it turns out that Jen isn't moving to India to be with Rishi. Instead, she's down the block from me. She's right round the corner from where I used to live in NYC. You can literally see my old apartment from here. And the fact that she's living with her friend Randy with no Rishi in sight raises the question, what's happened to their relationship? Are they still together? Is Jen still planning on settling in India? Well, unfortunately, there's still a lot of issues to overcome, chief amongst them being Rishi's family.
And he proposed to me, but we had a major hurdle to overcome. His family did not accept me because of our age difference.
स्मार्टों कोई वो नहीं है आप में कमी बस एज की कमी है नहीं तो हम ही स्वीकार कर लेते.
Yeah, we've heard that, but thanks for reiterating it.
Yeah. Despite how kind and polite she tried to be, Jen being 14 years older than Rishi was always a problem for Rishi's mum. That big an age gap is a big problem for Indian society in general. So as difficult as this was for Jen to hear, Rishi's mum was just being a realist. But the problem was, Jen refused to hear it. She claimed she was being age-shamed. But the thing is, Rishi vowed to stick by Jen. He vowed that he'd go against his parents and marry Jen. So what happened?
To this day, Rishi's mom still does not accept me because of my age. From my perspective, we are not engaged. If you ask Rishi, we're engaged.
So despite moving to New York to live with her friend Randy, Jen is now back at square one. She and Rishi are back to having a long-distance relationship. But, surprise, surprise, as always seems to be the case with these two, they're on very different pages when it comes to their relationship. It's good to know that some things never change.
He wants to say we're engaged. I'm like, we're not engaged until, your family is fully accepting of us. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Fundamentally, that's a very big problem when one partner thinks that they're engaged, but the other thinks that they're not. Clearly there's some very big cracks forming in this relationship, but we'll get to that very shortly. So the situation is, Jen wants Rishi's family's approval. They're never really likely to give it to her, and Rishi is pretending that all will be okay. Which begs the question, does Jen believe him? Is she willing to go back to India to give this another shot?
Are you going to move there again?
So, okay, this is what, oh my God. I'm kind of scared to tell you.
So just spill it.
Oh no, Jen, just spill it out. What is it that you want to say? Because you know it's going to be bad if you're stuttering and umming and ahhing like this. You know that Randy's going to give it to you straight. Just look at Randy's face. That is the look of an exhausted friend who's had to put up with way too much of your shit already. Now, Jen prefaces what she's about to say with, I can't believe I'm entertaining this. And then she goes on to spill the beans.
He wants us to go for IVF. Give it to me straight. Like, tell me what you're thinking. You can be like, I think you're incredibly stupid.
Oh my giddy gosh. Jen, are you kidding me? Why? Jen, why? Why on earth are you even considering this? She's just as crazy as Rishi is if she seriously thinks that bringing a baby into the equation will in any way help their messed up relationship. Now, bearing in mind that Jen is about 48 years old at the time of filming this Diaries episode, and bearing in mind she's never particularly even wanted her own biological children. Sorry, but I really don't think IVF is a solution to all their problems.
I've always wanted to adopt, right? That was the thing that I've always been considering. When I met him, he was like, I want to adopt. So it's kind of messed up. I feel like he kind of, one way of thinking to the other.
So Rishi changed the rules of the game. He decided he didn't want to adopt anymore. He wanted his own biological kid. Now, of course, it is his prerogative to change his mind. But if he's known this all along, if he's known this all the while that he's been with Jen, then that would be out of order. He's just wasted Jen's time. I really can't help but feel that this whole timing, Rishi's change of mind, is highly suspicious. And Randy feels exactly the same way.
Are you trying to prove to his mom that, hey, I may be older, but I can still have kids?
I'm not, but I think that's what he's thinking.
But it's your body.
Now it's all beginning to fall into place. The timing, the randomness of suddenly wanting a baby. Rishi seems to think that if Jen can get pregnant, then his family will have no reason not to approve her. She can provide them with a grandchild. And after all, not being able to provide a grandchild was the very reason why Rishi's mum didn't want Rishi to marry Jen in the first place.
I'm pulling a Rishi on Rishi. I'm like, sure. Like, I'm just, yeah, let's see what happens. But if I'm being honest, I just can't even imagine.
Now, Jen reveals that while Rishi's been making all of these grand plans to literally bring a child into the universe with her, he's not spoken once to his family about marrying Jen or having a baby with her. Yeah. So while Jen may be trying to convince herself that she's pulling a Rishi on Rishi, turns out Rishi is also pulling a Rishi on her.
You and Rishi are going to try to have a child to force his family to accept you. I mean, that's a big deal. That's a really big deal.
I really don't think that Jen likes it when Randy spells it out for her like that. But that's the truth. That's exactly what they're doing. Rishi always had a talented way of framing things in one way, when in reality it was completely different. And that might be exactly what he's done here. Because now that Jen's really thinking about it, suddenly she's not sure if it's the right move.
The more I think about it, having our own child is just really, I think it's unrealistic. If I can't produce a child, is that like, okay, we can't proceed as a couple?
So if Jen can't have a child with Rishi, is that a deal breaker for him? Because it's kind of an important question. Like, the entire future of their relationship seems to hinge on that. Now, Randy's parting words of wisdom to Jen is that Jen should hop on a call and talk to her fiance, who might not be her fiance, and talk through these big decisions before committing to anything else. So that's precisely what Jen does.
I'm getting the feeling from you that you really want to have your own child, your own biological child.
Yeah, you can say yes.
Okay, good. Rishi's willing to be truthful about this. Now, like I said earlier, there's nothing wrong with changing your mind. But this was something that Rishi should have openly told Jen, instead of just sneaking IVF into a conversation. The thing is, we all know by now that Rishi isn't exactly the open, honest conversation kind of guy. The truth only ever seems to come out when Jen confronts him.
If I say I don't want to have a biological child, is that a deal breaker for you?
Jen speaks slowly. She wants to make sure that Rishi understands everything she's saying. There's no room for misunderstanding here. She explains that she needs to know if, at the back of his mind, Rishi will one day resent her if he doesn't have his own biological child. And as Rishi thinks about this, Jen takes the opportunity to be honest about how she's really feeling.
I don't think I want to have a baby, honestly. I just don't think that me doing that to my body is a good idea at this point in my life.
It's not just about a baby. Jen has her own health to think about too. Because of her age, there are health concerns that she'll need to think about, she will need to address. And frankly, going through all of that, taking those risks, doesn't seem worth it if the only goal here is to try and get Rishi's family's approval.
I just want you basically with me, in whole my life.
I would feel a lot better if you would talk to your family and say, this is the situation.
What's that saying? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Yeah. How many times do you think they need to have this conversation before Jen finally realises that Rishi isn't going to talk to his family? He's not going to be honest with them. He's not going to be honest with you, Jen. Rishi's a people pleaser. He wants everyone to be happy. But in this scenario, that's just impossible.
I don't want it to talk like anyone else, just to my mom. If she understands, I hope she will understand because she is also a mother.
Jen's not confident that Rishi will even speak to his mum, and even if he does, she has doubts that they'll accept anything, and I'm inclined to agree with her. This relationship is like the slowest plane crash in history. We all know it's not gonna work. We all know they don't have a future with one another, but for some reason both of them are holding on. But, correctly as it turns out, Jen, at this point right here, finally acknowledges that the writing might be on the wall.
I hope that I'm wrong, because this baby business might be the last straw for our relationship.
And, as it turns out, Jen was right. You see, after this episode was filmed, in November 2023, Rishi confirmed on his Instagram that the pair had split up. His caption read, "Jen and I have mutually decided to part ways. This hasn't been an easy decision by any measure, but we know it's the right one at this point in our lives." And as it turns out, it really didn't take Rishi long to move on. Because just a few months later, on January the 14th of this year, he introduced the world to his new girlfriend. The photo featured him tightly hugging a lady named Maria, with the caption referring to her as his love. But wait, it gets even wilder, because at the start of February, Rishi then uploaded another Instagram story announcing that he and Maria were engaged. And then, 1 week later, the pair were sharing footage of their wedding. It's crazy. It actually makes you question whether or not he knew Maria while still with Jen, doesn't it? Was Maria one of the ladies that Rishi's family were trying to set him up with while he was with Jen? Was she perhaps one of the ladies that his friends hinted that he used to go off with in nightclubs? Who knows? But one thing's for sure, Rishi and Maria's wedding looked lavish, and even fellow co-stars Jenny and Sumit were in attendance. So while Rishi's life seems to have gone full steam ahead, Jen, by comparison, is taking a step back and taking time to compose herself. She really hasn't posted much online lately, but from what I can make out, she seems to have started the new year with doing what she loves best, which is travelling and seeing new countries. She shared this video of herself in Mexico, and who knows, maybe while there she might find herself a Rishi replacement.